If you click through the vacation photos on anyone's smartphone today, you will see a modern version of travel that is entirely sanitized, climate-controlled, and digitally optimized. You will see passengers sealed inside sleek, aerodynamic crossovers, each isolated in their own private bubble of air conditioning, watching movies on personal tablets, or listening to custom playlists through noise-canceling headphones. The modern highway journey is a quiet, seamless transition from point A to point B, a predictable experience designed to erase the physical reality of the miles passing by outside the tinted glass. But if you are of a certain age, your memories of traveling across the country are painted in an entirely different palette of colors, sounds, and unforgettable sensory details. To anyone who grew up in the 1960s, the words "summer road trip" do not evoke a sense of quiet convenience. Instead, they trigger an immediate avalanche of vivid, physical memories. They bring back the intense smell of hot upholstery baking under a relentless July sun. They recall the rhythmic, deafening roar of a heavy wind rushing through an open window, and the physical sensation of your skin being practically welded to a sticky vinyl bench seat. Back then, a family road trip wasn't just a way to get to a destination. It was an epic, unpredictable, and thoroughly unpasteurized human endurance test. It was an annual family migration packed into a giant, unair-conditioned steel vessel that rumbled down two-lane highways and brand new stretches of interstate ribbon. The preparation for this great migration began days before the actual departure. It centered entirely around the undisputed king of the mid-century American highway, the family station wagon, or the heavy, chrome-laden four-door sedan. These vehicles weren't just modes of transportation. They were massive engineering statements of post-war optimism, built from heavy Detroit steel, wrapped in acres of polished chrome, and propelled by thirsty, rumbling V8 engines. Long before the era of lightweight plastics, everything about these cars was heavy, mechanical, and tactile. The ignition keys were small, sharp pieces of stamped metal. The door handles required a firm, satisfying push of a chrome button to release, and the tailgates dropped down with a heavy, metallic thud that could be heard across the entire neighborhood. To pack this great vessel was a delicate art form, traditionally masterminded by the head of the household. Suitcases made of hard, heavy leather or vulcanized fiberboard were stacked with geometric precision into the deep rear cargo hold. Cardboard boxes packed with maps, flashlights, extra motor oil, and a metal toolbox were wedged into the gaps. And finally, the crown jewel of the packing operation was loaded, a heavy, insulated steel cooler, painted a bright holiday red or hunter green, packed to the brim with blocks of ice, glass bottles of Coca-Cola, and wax paper wrapped sandwiches. Tonight, we are going to roll down those heavy hand-cranked windows, turn the key, and step straight back into the roaring, baking, unforgettable reality of the classic 1960-second summer road trip. We are going to rediscover exactly what it smelled like, what it sounded like, and why that beautifully chaotic era of travel gave us a taste of real adventure that can never be replicated. Once the driveway was cleared and the nose of the station wagon pointed toward the open road, the reality of mid-century traveling conditions settled in. The defining characteristic of a 1960-second summer road trip can be summarized in two words: intense heat. Long before air conditioning was a standard feature in American automobiles, a summer journey meant operating inside a mobile greenhouse. The vast, sweeping expanses of glass windows and the massive steel roofs acted as perfect heat traps, absorbing the relentless July rays and transferring that energy directly into the interior of the cabin. And at the center of this climate experience was the infamous vinyl upholstery. Whether your car featured a broad front bench seat or individual buckets, those seats were almost universally wrapped in thick, non-porous vinyl. After sitting in a roadside diner parking lot for an hour, that vinyl didn't just feel warm, it became a literal baking sheet. Sliding onto the seat in a pair of summer shorts was a rite of passage that required true bravery. Within minutes, a layer of perspiration would form between your skin and the non-breathable plastic material. Every time you shifted your weight or tried to lean forward, you were greeted by a distinct, painful peeling sensation as your skin reluctantly detached from the sticky upholstery, leaving a pattern of the vinyl weave temporarily pressed into the back of your legs. To combat the stifling environment, families relied on a beautifully crude, mechanical solution: the hand-cranked window and the triangular vent window. Rolling down a window in the 1960s wasn't as simple as pressing a plastic button on a door panel. It was a physical workout. You had to lean over, grip a heavy chrome handle, and wind it vigorously around and around until the heavy pane of glass finally disappeared into the door frame. If you were a child stuck in the back seat, you had to beg the front seat passengers to adjust their windows to send some air your way. But the real engineering marvel of the era was the front vent window, that small, pivoting glass triangle located just ahead of the main front door glass. By turning a small chrome latch and pushing the vent window outward at a sharp angle, it acted as a physical air scoop. It would catch the rushing highway wind and redirect a high-pressure jet of outdoor air directly into the front footwells, targeting the hot faces of the parents. On the open highway, with all four main windows rolled completely down and the vent windows fully deployed, the interior of the car transformed from a quiet cabin into a literal hurricane. The noise was absolutely deafening. A roaring gale of wind swept through the vehicle, whipping long hair into wild tangles, causing maps to flutter violently, and forcing family members to shout at the top of their lungs just to hold a conversation. Yet, despite the noise, the wind, and the sweat, there was something intensely alive about it. You weren't sealed away from the world in a climate-controlled capsule. You felt the changing temperature of the air as you drove through a shaded forest. You smelled the sudden dampness of a nearby river, and you were completely immersed in the physical reality of the geography you were conquering. With the wind howling through the cabin and the engine humming steadily below, the center of entertainment and navigation for the entire journey relied entirely on the dashboard. Long before GPS satellites, digital dashboard screens, and real-time traffic alerts, navigating across the country was a tactile, high-stakes mental exercise. The undisputed navigator of the trip, usually the mother sitting in the front passenger seat, held the ultimate power of direction. This responsibility rested on a giant, folded sheet of paper, the state highway map, often obtained for free from a friendly neighborhood Texaco, Exxon, or Sinclair gas station. Unfolding a 1,960 seconds roadmap was like opening a massive parchment scroll. Once fully expanded, it stretched completely across the dashboard, blocking the passenger's view of the road and requiring a steady hand to keep the wind from ripping it out of the car. Tracking the route required a sharp eye, following thick red lines for major highways, blue lines for scenic routes, and tiny black dots representing small towns. If a turn was missed, there was no pleasant digital voice to recalculate the route. You had to pull over onto a gravel shoulder, squint at the tiny print under a dome light, and figure it out yourself. And folding that map back into its original, crisp accordion shape, that was an engineering challenge that baffled even the smartest parents, usually resulting in a crumpled ball stuffed into the glove compartment. While the passenger managed the paper horizon, the center of the dashboard provided the trip's soundtrack through a single, small AM radio speaker. Radio in the 1960s was a localized, changing adventure. As the car sped away from the hometown station, the music would slowly begin to dissolve into a sea of crackling static and fading signals. A teenager or parent would constantly reach out to twist the heavy, chrome tuning knob, slowly searching the dial for a new, stronger signal from a local town ahead. Suddenly, through the static, a brand new voice would burst to life, a fast-talking local disc jockey playing regional hits, reading advertisements for livestock feed, or forecasting a sudden Midwestern thunderstorm. Tuning the radio was an active part of traveling. You could literally hear the changing culture of the country through the speaker as you crossed state lines. Beneath the radio sat the open chrome ashtray, which, during a summer trip, often served as a temporary holding spot for loose coins, tollway tokens, and discarded chewing gum wrappers. Beside it, the glove box held a chaotic collection of travel essentials: a heavy metal flashlight with a dim yellow beam, a tire pressure gauge, a bottle of aspirin, and a pair of oversized, green plastic sunglasses. There were no digital sensors to monitor the vehicle's health, just a row of heavy mechanical gauges on the instrument cluster that the driver watched like a hawk, keeping a nervous eye on the engine temperature needle as the heavy steel wagon climbed the long, sun-baked highway hills. While the parents managed the navigation and mechanics up front, the entire rear half of the vehicle belonged to an entirely different ecosystem: the back seat. Long before the era of mandatory seatbelts, child safety seats, and strictly enforced passenger limits, the interior of a 1,962nd station wagon was a lawless, fluid wilderness. Children weren't buckled securely into fixed positions. They shifted, crawled, and lounged across the wide expanses of vinyl like travelers on a rolling living room floor. If you were a middle child, you were stuck on the main rear bench seat, sandwiched tightly between your siblings. With the intense summer heat making everyone irritable, that bench seat quickly transformed into a high-stakes geopolitical battlefield. An imaginary line was drawn directly down the center of the vinyl upholstery, and crossing that line with an elbow, a knee, or a rogue toy was considered an immediate declaration of war. To pass the long, sweltering hours, children relied on an array of low-tech distractions. Stacks of colorful comic books, their pages turning soft and damp from sweaty hands, were passed back and forth. Travel games with tiny magnetic pieces were played directly on the seat, though a sudden bump on a gravel road would inevitably send the plastic markers flying into the dark crevices beneath the floorboards. But the ultimate prize of any 1,960 seconds road trip was the coveted, way back, the rear-facing third-row seat, or the flat cargo area, at the very back of the station wagon. If you were lucky enough to claim this space, you were the king of the highway. You could lie completely flat on your back, staring up through the massive, curved rear glass at the sky passing overhead. You could watch the telephone pole shrink into the distance, or make dramatic, funny faces at the drivers of the cars trailing directly behind your family's bumper. However, riding in the way back came with a distinct sensory trade-off. Because the rear window was often rolled down to catch a breeze, the aerodynamic vacuum of the station wagon's flat back end would pull the exhaust fumes from the tailpipe directly into the cargo hold. Traveling through the mountains meant breathing in a steady, heavy mixture of unburnt gasoline and hot exhaust, a scent that every child of the era would forever associate with the thrill of a summer vacation. When the bickering in the back reached a fever pitch, the father would deliver his ultimate weapon from the front seat, a stern glance in the rearview mirror, accompanied by a loud, definitive warning that he was fully prepared to pull this car over onto the side of the road. Instantly, a tense, fragile peace would fall over the backseat battlefield, as everyone turned their eyes back to the window, watching for the next landmark on the horizon. As the long afternoon hours slowly dissolved into twilight, the road trip entered its final, most magical phase. After hundreds of miles of roaring wind, sticky vinyl, and squinting through the glare of the dashboard, the landscape outside began to change. The blinding heat of the daytime sun gave way to the cool, crisp evening air of the open countryside. For the exhausted travelers inside the steel vessel, relief didn't come from a smartphone notification or a rest stop application. It appeared on the horizon as a flashing, vibrant oasis of light, the mid-century roadside strip. Long before giant, identical corporate travel plazas dominated every single highway exit, the American roadside was a wild, creative frontier of independent businesses. As darkness fell, towering neon signs would burst to life in a brilliant display of buzzing reds, electric blues, and canary yellows. These signs were architectural masterpieces designed to catch a driver's eye at 60 miles per hour, flashing inviting words like air-cooled, color TV, and vacant. Pulling into a gravel parking lot of a 1,960 seconds roadside diner or motor court motel was a multi-sensory celebration. When you opened the heavy metal door and stepped out of the car, your legs would tremble slightly from hours of road vibration. The sudden evening breeze felt like a miracle against your damp skin. The air was thick with the rich, comforting aromas of sizzling burgers, fresh coffee, and hot berry pies drifting from the diner's kitchen exhaust vents, mingling with the distinct smell of your car's ticking, cooling V8 engine block. Inside the diner, sitting on a chrome bar stool or a vinyl booth. The family would recount the adventures of the day over tall glasses of ice water and classic American diner food. It was a brief, joyful pause where the fatigue of the journey was replaced by the collective excitement of being somewhere completely new. Back on the road for the final stretch of the night, the atmosphere inside the station wagon completely transformed. The backseat battlefield was completely gone. Exhausted from the heat and the excitement, the children would curl up on blankets across the wide floorboards or drift off to sleep in the way back, their heads resting on rolled-up jackets. Up front, the parents drove on in a peaceful, rhythmic trance. The only illumination inside the cabin was the soft, amber glow of the AM radio dial and the sweeping beams of oncoming headlights cutting through the dark. The soundtrack was nothing but the steady, hypnotic thump-thump of the tires passing over the concrete highway seams and the low, reassuring whisper of a late-night radio announcer playing a slow ballad. By the time the station wagon finally pulled into the driveway of the vacation cottage, the beachside cabin, or the grandparents' home, the journey had accomplished its true purpose. The classic 1,960 seconds road trip was undeniably loud, sweltering, and physically demanding. Yet, because it forced us to feel every single mile, to compromise with our families in a shared space, and to actively look out the window to discover the world, it left an indelible mark on our souls. The smell of hot vinyl and chrome wasn't just a byproduct of travel, it was the sweet, unforgettable scent of real American adventure, and a golden era of the open road that we will cherish forever. Thank you for rolling down the windows and taking this journey across the miles of memory with us today. If you remember the stick of the vinyl seats, the roar of the vent windows, or the beautiful neon oases of your childhood summer road trips, please share your incredible stories in the comments below. Until our next adventure together, keep your eyes on the horizon, cherish your beautiful memories, and take care.